So first question was, what does AVP mean or stand for? Frankly, it doesn't mean or stand for anything relevant. So you can just take that for what it's worth. Its label represents area vice president. Apparently it means that if you hang around long enough, they give you something with a VP in it just to, keep you relevant so that you can talk at certain levels when you meet with customers. But that's all it is. It's just a label. And I've been around for quite a bit and currently working in the field side of the fence with customers and supporting customers, our premier customers, on architectural decisions, getting their alignment of what their strategies are with our product releases, solution level deliveries, and basically supporting those higher end customers. So, and I still keep my fingers tied into the R&D side for a while and then switch back over to the field side, but still have some ties back into some of the activities that are going on with the product, or products, I should say, and the direction of the platform and strategy. So that's about it in a nutshell. The items that we have listed here were brought up as ideas for topics. And I'm gonna go through and elaborate a bit more on the 5 that were submitted. I don't know why I have, oh, I see. Okay, so there were 5 that were submitted that I can speak to. I could probably summarize some of the other ones as well, just to give you a little bit of background as you consider making your choices. As most of you know who attend the RUG conference, what's important to keep in mind is the yourselves and other folks who attend the conference, that audience, to make sure that we have topics that are going to be valuable and beneficial to folks to be able to take back and either influence or affect their ability to leverage the solution going forward, get some insight into direction and strategy so they can stay in alignment with the things that are on the roadmap, and excuse me, also provide insights maybe specifically into particular products and solutions that we are either have released or have coming down the pipe. But it really takes into account the audience being the Remedy, historical Remedy user groups, those who are familiar with the platform, but also acknowledging that as we get into the service management space, there's other aspects and other ties to other capabilities and solutions that may be relevant to that space. So some of these topics kind of have a broad coverage, and I'll start with the first one to illustrate that point. The first one is titled End-to-End Solution Dependencies for Proactive Service Resolution Migration Considerations. Bunch of words with a bunch of syllables in it. But what it's intended to talk about is, for those who have the experience of dealing with goals of going from reactive to proactive service management, meaning that you're able to identify issues as before your customers identify them and call you on the phone, we typically leverage multiple products from discovery to know what you have in the environment, to populate the CMDB, to act as your system of record for what is in the environment, in your infrastructure, and may be supported by models, which is then made available to the event management system. So as issues occur, you're able to create incidents with context and awareness of what upstream application or service it's impacting, so that you're in a better position to address the issue. So this is what we typically refer to as service resolution, where you can also add remediation on the back end. But what that involves is leveraging discovery, working with CMDB, working with event management, in this case TSOM, and then TSOM being able to be that event management tool that creates tickets in the incident management system. Now, if you have experience, or if you have customers or interested in that solution, or have deployed or have customers who are working toward that, or have some aspects of that in play, this discussion, this topic, was really targeted for those customers who are now trying to move to the next evolution of the event management solution, which was TSOM and is now referred to as BHOM. TSOM standing for True Site Operations Management, and is now referred to as BHOM, which is the BMC Helix Operations Management. And it is a migration because there is a fundamental evolution of capability there. with the expectation that that solution will be available in the cloud and on-prem via containers. Whereas TSOM will at some point go to an end of life. There's some period of time before that occurs, of course, but is limited to on-prem. And at the same time, acknowledging that much of our investment in event management will be in the BHOM solution, the BMC Helix Operation Management Solution. Well, with that in place, customers who have that end-to-end solution that I described, discovery, CM2B, CM2B to event management, detect issues, create incidents, that whole flow will be impacted by the fact that you go from TSOM to BHOM. And when you make that move, you got to deal with decisions about how do I make the move without breaking or losing functionality or degrading my capability by going to this version of BHOM, given that there's some things that have to be done first in order to support the benefits of going to the BHOM platform, which is dealing with discovery, sharing the data store with the BHOM event management solution. So how do I do that? What sequence should I go in? What's the proposed approach? If I just tried to do it brute force, what would break? How do I plan for that so that I do a seamless transition while at the same time getting the benefits of getting the benefits of the new release of event management and BHOM, and still maintaining my ability to integrate and create incidents as part of the solution? So this is one of those examples where we did this for one or two customers who were definitely in this position. There was other customers that are out there that are doing this. And we found ourselves presenting this over and over again to customers who are at that level of maturity doing this. So it made sense. It's something we've done several times, actually 4 or 5 times with customers, and there's queued up some others. But the question is that interesting and relevant for the Remedy user group? Do we have folks who are interested in how those pieces move and how that comes together? Are you talking to customers, or are you customers yourselves who are looking at that situation trying to solve it? So that's what that first one is about. The second one, which is referred to as Service Management Converge Platform, before and after, this is really addressing some historical, what I call baggage. Frankly, over time, we had a strategy where we were creating aspects and capabilities in the service management space that led to a proliferation of components and data stores and databases and graphical development environment, multiple instances of it, et cetera, multiple instances of Remedy and all this. And so that had led to a variety of things that were in the environment that customers fully acknowledged that it was very difficult to sustain and maintain. Plus, it didn't fit with our go-forward strategy of consolidated and coexistence of information. So for those who live in that world, which exists for everything that is pre-2008, as you get on to 2102, as you get post-2102, you will then get into what is referred to as the Consolidated Converged Service Management Platform, where you'll have a consolidation of a single data store, a single instance of innovation suite being leveraged for multiple solutions instead of having multiple instances, and understanding what that means as you migrate from the previous proliferation of components into this consolidated and converged platform and the benefits that it offers, especially when you consider the graphical front end that now supports interacting with the Remedy backend. So that's the second one. And that last part I mentioned ties into the third one. Finally, a graphical process workflow development environment that complements the Remedy platform. For those who've been around for a bit, you'll know 5 to 6 years ago, we stood on stage, myself, Doug Mueller, and a few other folks, and we started talking about providing a graphical process workflow on the front end that would be complementary and work in conjunction with the Remedy back-end platform. And then the next year, the world changed and we went in a different direction. We are now coming full circle where we're now executing against, delivering against that commitment to the point where it's not just talk on the stage. There are actually releases that fit into this Converge platform. And this is really focused on how does that benefit you? How do you get the benefits of the process front end, and how does it trigger or tie into the Remedy workflow on the back end to leverage your previous investments, plus put you in a position to figure out if you're designing new capability, how do you get the best of both worlds by leveraging the graphical process workflow on the front end, while at the same time benefiting from the workflow and the filter and the structures of the Remedy platform on the back end. So this is intended to talk and give insight about that capability. The fourth one has to do with on-prem with containers. How do I get there from here? And when do I arrive? When I arrive, what's the difference? If you haven't gotten the memo yet, BMC is no longer supporting the traditional deployment. Anything that's being done on-prem is going to be supported within containers. If you don't know how to spell containers, this might be a very good session for you to attend, not because you'll become an expert when you're done, but you'll be able to have a conversation or at least understand at a high level of what things you need to be aware of, what expertise needs to be in play, and what's the major difference in how products and solutions get deployed. There may be some terminology things that are introduced. It's not intended to be a training on containers, but it does put in context to bridge that gap between what we're used to with regard to server groups and where the mid-tier sits relative to smart IT, as relative to the new progressive UX. How does that all fit and get managed within the footprint of what's now being referred to as a container, and how do I receive and get updates and releases, and why does that make any difference in our lives, and why is it better? What does that help with? So this gives you that view. It is not with the intent of giving you a crash course on becoming an expert on being able to manage and deploy containers. It's just giving you those concepts, the principles, and why it makes a difference compared to the previous deployment model we had for doing installations, native install scripts, and things like that. The next one is, this ain't your dad's knowledge management solution. This one is intended to introduce that we have investment and acquisition of a solution that's very focused and geared around a solution called Come Around, that is providing a different approach toward knowledge management. It is not necessarily replacing our previous approach to how information is managed and stored. It is providing an alternative and likely provides more capability to support some of the upstream channels that leverage that knowledge information, such as chatbot, which really gets a strong benefit from having a consistent structure of information. You leverage our knowledge management solution in previous releases. There's a lot of wiggle room to store information in a variety of different ways. That doesn't bode well for some of these structured upstream channels that need to find and leverage that information. Come Around helps in that regard. This session focuses on understanding its role and how it works, and what that evolution is for knowledge management, and how we see it being valuable to the solution set. The next one, future-proof ITSM, keeping the other vendors at bay.
Sorry, Darius.
I'll hand that over to you.
Yeah, I'll talk to those. So in our discussion, amongst Lenny and Bob and Darius and myself, and by the way, with LJ and Mishi and Jason as well, we see a lot of other customers moving to a different vendor when the vendor comes in and says, hey, Remedy sucks, we're going to go to a different platform. I'm trying not to bash anybody here, but what happens is, and this is kind of the repeating story of why another vendor can come in and say, hey, listen, it looks like you're having problems with your environment. We can fix that in 6 weeks. Give us a lot of money. We can come in and do it, which never happens. So what typically is the reason people typically get there is they don't add the new groups or organizations as their organization grows. They don't add new data to their CMDB. They don't add new products to their product catalog. They don't add new locations. And even though you put Remedy in, or ITSM in, 18 months ago, if you don't continue to tune it up, you're just like a car. If you don't continue to change the oil and check the air in the tires and rotate them, that kind of a thing. If you don't continue to do that, yeah, your system's going to be slow. If you don't have archival systems in place or different things, eventually the environment doesn't reflect your current organization. And if you don't look at the data and stuff, all of a sudden it becomes irrelevant and it doesn't seem to work. And people say Remedy sucks. And by this other vendor saying, hey, let's go ahead and we put our tool in and we'll do it, in 6 weeks, you're actually going through that entire process of the analysis. What does your organization look like? What are your categorizations look like? What are your locations? What does your product catalog look like? What's an accepted product? What's an unauthorized product? And you go through that process in the migration to a different tool. This particular session is going to tell you how to avoid getting in that situation so that these other vendors can swoop in and say, yeah, Remedy sucks, we can fix it for you, sign here, 6 weeks later, it's not done. That's kind of going to help you keep your job basically as an administrator or developer or consultant. So that's kind of what future proofing is talking about, keeping the other vendors at bay. The implementing CMDB, the subtitle there was what to do, what not to do, and how to do it basically. I can tell you that I've worked with a lot of folks here, and we get customer requirements that don't make sense. And we're the consultants. We are typically the experts that come in, and the customer says, hey, I've got 10 data sources. I'm going to put them all in at once. I don't care. Don't tell me that I need to do a particular the activity to cull the data, and just do what I say. This particular topic is going to tell you how to address those kind of questions, how to lead your customer in implementing a CMDB, why you need it, and kind of the steps to make sure that you do things right, and the steps to avoid, to make sure you don't end up with a nightmare that, again, the customer can say, well, we're just going to go to another product because it looks like you're taking too long. So that's the implementing your CMDB is going to tell you why it's important, how to do it, what to do, and what not to do, right? So that's primarily that one. And then the BMC Helix Data Manager was previously called the Custom Remove Tool by Alderstone. Since BMC purchased Alderstone and incorporated them into the family here, now it's called the BMC Helix Data Manager. And I'm hoping to get somebody from BMC, and I was talking to them here today over email, and I'm hoping to get them to show us what this tool looks like now and how it can be used. And Darius, you were talking about how it can be used not just to migrate people. I know that one of my customers used it to move from one environment to the next, but you can also use this for backing data up. Is that right, Darius? You were talking about that a little bit. Can you give a little bit more insight into what the Helix Data Manager does now?
Yeah, some of the things it's on the roadmap, and it's I'll keep it light here because I want to make sure that I don't cross certain lines in information. But HDM, the Helix data migration tool, is or data manager, whatever the D and the M stand for. It is primarily looking to move. We usually look at it to move from a legacy system into the current system. But at the same time, it's moving data. And the benefit of this solution, as you guys know who are familiar with CMT, it has an intimate knowledge of the remedy structures and how they're organized and how to leverage the metadata to get that movement and get that data transfer right. Well, the opportunity that we're pursuing and looking at is for that to be leveraged broader than just moving from one version of a solution to a future version. We're also looking at the option or the opportunity to leverage it potentially to move information from a particular use case where a customer may have a solution in the cloud and they're deployed with ITSM in the cloud, but they need a local set of data or a subset of information on-prem to support their on-prem data warehouse that uses this information to be commingled with other data that is never going to be available in the cloud instance because it's generated, managed, and maintained on-prem. And so you need those two pieces of information commingled. So you need to pull from one and have that information, or that subset of information, represented in your local data store or local data warehouse for any of your reporting or other analytical needs on-prem. So HDM is being considered to look at moving information the other way, which is taking information and creating a shadow representation or shadow copy of a subset of information on-prem, or making information available so that you can replicate it to another source. Those are some of the roadmap considerations for where HDM is going above and beyond just migrating from a legacy version of the product to the current version.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I'm looking here at the survey. We've got 14 out of 22 people that have completed the survey. 66% are participated. I should be able to, once I get a little bit above now, the 15 people have submitted it. So now, thank you, Darius, by the way, for kind of giving some context about what these titles mean. I know, by the way, these are kind of working titles. I've kind of revamped my CMDB one and the future proofing one, and we'll eventually, you know, just like any movie that's being filmed, you've got a working title and then a release title. But you know, it's tough to kind of make these concise. So once we get some towards the end of the meeting, I will actually share the results. If we get to 100%, we're at 71% right now. If we get to 100% before the meeting, I will share the results before the meeting is over. If not, then I will have the results that I'll share towards the end of the meeting anyway. So again, thanks, Darius. I appreciate that. Thank you for kind of giving some context to that. Since we're talking about LVRUG, Lenny, you want to say anything for a couple of minutes before we move on? Because I think this is a great segue. And by the way, I can tell you that right now the ITSM on-prem with containers, as far as the selection, the first selection there, it has 15 out of 15. Everybody has selected that particular one. That has the highest percentage of selections on the first one, on the first question about what you'd like to see. And it looks like that actually is ranked #1 currently in the first ranking. Which topic would you rather have ranked #1? That's first. And then the second is also,
Phil, you're skewing your results by giving these other people what the answers are. You can't do that.
Oh, I can't.
Every vote counts. Every vote counts there, Phil.
Hey, I need you to vote for my thing.
I'll be quiet.
No, I don't have anything else to add because I did that at the beginning, so I'm good.
The one thing, Phil, I did want to put out or ask or put on the table, I assume this is just a list of things that we currently have in place. I suspect there will be room for a few other topics to take into account, because there's a topic that comes to mind that I think would be relevant to this audience. But it's just a matter of, you know, having that discussion and figuring out. One of the things I'll emphasize in that bucket is that historically, we've done a lot of things within the space of Remedy and the platform and all that great stuff. It's carried us far and done some great things to enable solutions for customers. There was an indication of, you know, talking about things to, you know, what's the word? What was the description? To keeping other vendors at bay. One of the best opportunities for that is to also understand the Remedy platform, and more specifically the service management solution space, in the context of the larger platform, the larger Helix platform, and solutions that are available and being supported as a part of that container strategy. So that's one of the go-to-market activities that are going on, because we're not relegating our conversations with customers anymore just around service management. But one of the bigger, larger discussions is, you've probably heard this acronym, ADE. I do not want to get caught up into the marketing philosophical discussion of what the world will be like in 5 years. But there is no argument or discussion or debate around AI ops and for DevOps and those types of capabilities being relevant to customers. And having topics like that to understand how service management and our solutions from Remedy to Innovation Suite, Innovation Studio fit within enabling the areas of being a very strong and leading participant in the capabilities of AI ops, DevOps, and other things like that. We would probably want to look for topics like that, because it elevates the discussion beyond just ticketing and change management. It says how those governing elements are a key component in larger initiatives that customers are trying to solve for.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Darius. I appreciate you joining and going over what these topics mean. By the way, if I think one of the ones that we'd probably like to see, and I'm going to make this request to BMC, is the progressive web apps, right? Because that's going to be key on all this. So just because of what you see there, just because it's not listed, that doesn't mean it's not going to be presented. This is kind of just what we wanted to kind of get an idea from all of y'all of how what we're proposing ranks with what you want to see. The last thing we want to do is pick a topic that's near and dear to our heart, present that, and have nobody show up because it wasn't something that anybody cared about, right? Or was interested at that time, or maybe even ready for, right? Because one of the things Darius talked about is you have to be ready to be, you have to be ready to be proactive on all this kind of stuff. So with that, Bob, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the meeting back to you. I think you've got LJ's presentation and then yours.
Correct.
And with that, I'm going to go ahead and let back. Thank you, Darius. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.